4 long, busy weeks later and less than 24 hours away from the start of the NFL regular season, it is finally here, the penultimate, the finale of our NFL predictions August series. We've gone through every single team. We've picked every single game from the wins to the losses to me forcing in a tie that nobody asked for. We've gone through every step of the way. We've now got to the point where it's time to start picking our playoff runs and our Super Bowl champions and some awards. It is DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelsey as we get to the best and worst parts of our picks every single year because where we are right, we are wrong, and where we are wrong, we are right. But at the end of the day, this is kind of where we make all of our picks, our futures bets today. We don't have a betting segment for today. It is all a betting segment because we're banking on the future here.
Yeah, this is I put on my prediction hat. I pulled out my magic 8 ball. It took so much energy out of me. I'm struggling today, but you know what? We're gonna hope this pays off this year. It's been a couple years since I made the prediction right, so I need another one to come back. I think it's time again this year that my predictions come to fruition. So we'll hope that's the case, and all this exertion for trying to make my predictions come true will work out for us.
Absolutely. It is the time we are overdue. Last year, I was fortunate enough to get one of the participants right, but unfortunately, the other one I picked did not even make the playoffs. So it gives and it takes sometimes. It's the nature of the game, but we're gonna go through our playoff brackets. We're also going to do awards as well. There is the caveat too of since the last time we made our picks, less than 24 hours later,
Every time.
the formerly aforementioned Dallas Cowboys decided to make a trade that shook up our NFC North picks a little bit. So for my playoff bracket, we're gonna get right into. There has been a slight tweak. You might remember I had them as 8-8-1 because, well, that just seemed as goofy as I could possibly be. But the addition of Micah Parsons, I would say, is good for at least one win, maybe even two. And what that does is that gets them in the playoff hunt as we take a look at my playoff bracket, how it shapes up. They do take the spot of the Commanders, who are 9-8 and initially in that 7 seed. I've changed that because Micah Parsons, I believe, is good for a win, which will get them into that 7 seed. But here's how it shakes out for mine for those who haven't seen. On the AFC, we got Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Titans throwing things for a loop, Bengals, Chargers, and Raiders. The NFC side in order, we got the 49ers, the Lions, the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Cardinals, and the newly aforementioned Packers. So I want to run through the first round relatively quickly because I don't have a whole lot of surprises as we take a look at next. The Bengals will get over the Titans. The Titans were my fun pick to get in there, but there are levels to this. If that offense gets in there, that's a whole different story. Kansas City, I love the Chargers. We're gonna talk more about them later potentially. I think I really like their squad. I love them a lot more for Sean Slater was playing. Kansas City, though. Just that's all there is to it. Baltimore Ravens Baltimore Ravens, Las Vegas Raiders. Gosh, that'll be so fun on paper, but that's kind of a mismatch, unfortunately. The Raiders are my frisky team, but that's levels to this and going across country like that, that's difficult. NFC, the quote unquote upset, the Eagles will get by the Cowboys. I think by this point, those young defensive players, they'll find a way to get by them. The Cowboys, like I said when we did it before, I made them winning division with Micah Parsons. I'm sticking to it because I still did like a lot of the other roster moves. I'm not going to go back and try and repick every game with the Cowboys and just there's their offense. I think could still get them here if the Eagles aren't on their P's and Q's. And while those young guys get used to it, they did lose a lot of older veteran leaders. And I think losing Kellen Moore, another new offense. So by this point, the Eagles will have it shaken out, but I'm still going to stick with the Cowboys getting a tiebreaker. Buccaneers, Cardinals. Cardinals are the fun pick, but same thing. Tampa's still Tampa. Lions, Packers, Bears. We know the NFC North. Not even Lions get by them. Lions do what the Lions do, especially if they're healthy. Going on to the next round, the Bengals pulling the upset on the Bills. I think the AFC is a weird cluster of they just kind of all beat the crap out of each other, minus Kansas City, who always finds a way to get by. I think with the Bengals back in action, they'll find a way to sneak by Buffalo. Buffalo's in kind of a weird spot where I think they were so good last year, led by Josh Allen's MVP-ish efforts that it almost masked some of the roster deficiencies they had outside of Josh Allen, the offensive line. Like those two units are absolute staples. Defensively, they're very well coached, but there's still some issues here and there. We all love ourselves some Keon Coleman. At least if no other reason, we love to hear him talk. I think he'll take a step this year, but we're going to build on that. James Cook, they're going to build on it. I think it's still incoming. Kansas City and Baltimore until I see it happen. Until I see it happen, we're taking Kansas City to win that one until I witness it with my own eyes, regular season or postseason. Until I see it, we're going to take Kansas City. NFC side, 49ers coming off the bye week, healthy, ready, rolling the go. I think they'll find a way to get by the Eagles. Tampa Bay pulling the upside on the Lions is kind of the shocker here. For some reason, they just match up very well with Detroit. I don't know what it is. Tampa is just built to lose to bad teams, but beat really, really good teams. I think the Big Show will there'll be a Big Show that doesn't involve Josh Gordon in this case, and I think they'll find a way to get by the Lions in a bit of a shootout. Defensively, they have just enough young stars that'll get it done and contain that Lions offense, which will set up are very interesting championship games, which will take us into my Super Bowl prediction of the Kansas City Chiefs will get by the Bengals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will get by the 49ers to have a Kansas City versus Tampa Bay showdown. So I know this isn't I know unfortunately there's some other shows that have had this exact Super Bowl pick, but they aired theirs before ours, even though we had these ready to go months ago. So I'm a little behind the eight ball, but I will have Patrick Mahomes finding his way back to the Super Bowl somehow because death, taxes, and a Taylor Swift montage every Kansas City game, they will find their way back to the Super Bowl as well. I think Big Show and that Buccaneers team is loaded with Chris Godwin getting healthy early too. Mecca Ibuka, that offensive line is outstanding. Defense is young, versatile. Elijah Kansas can give you 70% of what they hoped for when they picked him, when they drafted him. My goodness, that defense has potential. So we got ourselves a Red Dead Redemption Super Bowl with the Chiefs taking on the Buccaneers.
Interesting. By the way, that was the last Super Bowl I predicted correctly. I just need to let it be known.
You know what? History repeats itself sometimes. Just
Little offended.
backwards.
Little offended by that's where you went there.
Look, you know what? You have plenty of opportunity to do the exact same thing or something else as you will. But before we get into my who I think is going to win, Kelcey, the stage is yours. As we take a look at your playoff bracket, and there's a little bit of differences. So I guess we won't see
Yeah.
too much overlap in theory.
No, little difference, and it's at the same time very similar. Starting in the AFC, Ravens my 1 seed. Number 2 is the Bills. Number 3 is going to be the Chiefs. 4 is the Texans. I do have the Texans resurgence, that AFC South winner. 5 is the Bengals, who have a better record than the Texans. 6 is the Patriots, who also have a better record than the Texans. And 7 is the Broncos, who also have a better record than the Texans. In the NFC, Eagles with the 1 seed. I just think they're a top team, they're a solid team, top to bottom. You didn't lose anything major. You didn't hurt yourselves at all. You got better. Biggest worry for you is just staying healthy. If you're an Eagles fan, that seems to be it. Your division just seemed to just decide to implode on itself for everybody but the Commanders. And the Commanders are still the Commanders, so we'll see what happens there. Number 2 is the Lions. Everything I just said about the Eagles, repeat for the Lions and just change in. Well, you did lose 2 coordinators. That's why you're not the 1 seed this year. Number 3 is the 49ers. I just have them having, again, another resurgence this year. The 4 seed Buccaneers, 5 seed Seahawks, 6 seed Packers, 7 seed Falcons sneaking their way in. I also think they have a good enough team. And this weird thing with the NFC South is always that the winner of the NFC South, and there's always a team that's right behind them, usually tied with them. This year, the Buccaneers are going to be a good team, and if the Falcons can keep up with them, it makes sense that they can sneak themselves into the playoffs. So with that said, when you go into the next round, nothing too surprising. Very similar teams in the AFC as you, just switched up the matchups. For me, the Ravens face the Bengals at home in Baltimore, and the Bills face the Chiefs at home at Highmark Stadium in its last year. In the NFC, the Eagles will face the Packers, and the Lions will face the Seahawks. So I guess you say the Seahawks have that upset, and the Packers have an upset over the 49ers. But when the Packers and 49ers meet in the playoffs, can we ever say it's an upset? I don't know. I do love the Seahawks, though. I love everything that run game can do. I think Sam Darnold is due for some kind of run after last year. I think the Seahawks are set up to maybe take that next step if healthy, if their rookies and young players decide to take that next step, if Sam Darnold is Sammy D, not just the dude who's seeing ghosts anymore. The Packers, the addition of Micah Parsons actually had nothing to do with the addition to them getting another round in here. And honestly, it makes me feel even better about this pick. Whether he plays in week 1 or not, doesn't matter to me. Week 18, wild card weekend, he'll be out there, and that's fine. But that's what it is. You got to go against the Eagles. Good luck with that. So Eagles, Packers, Lions, Seahawks in the NFC. Looking at the next round, though, I have the opposite winners as you do. And it's because of who they matched up with. Everything you said about the matchups is how I feel about this. The Chiefs having to go into Highmark in the last season of Highmark Stadium, it's hard for me to believe that the Bills would lose despite their history as a franchise in the playoffs. I have a hard time thinking Josh Allen's going to lose that playoff game after so many great games with Kansas City in the playoffs against Kansas City in the regular season. I feel like this is going to be Josh Allen's moment to kind of take that next step. So I have them advancing over the Chiefs, taking on the number 1 seed in the Ravens. Again, Ravens Bengals. That's a matchup as old as time right now. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. You go into BMO, see what happens. Joe Burrow plays well against Baltimore, but Lamar Jackson also plays well at home in the playoffs against the Bengals. And that's the difference. They've never really actually played at home against the Bengals in Lamar Jackson's history. But you know what? It's going to be a good run, anyways. And then in the NFC side, I have the Eagles advancing, taking on the Lions. Kind of a chalk pick here. 1-2s on both sides. But maybe surprising to folks, maybe not. Looking at the Super Bowl matchup I have the Bills taking on them Eagles. If Jared's watching, you're welcome, Jared. Despite everything I've said, you guys are still probably the best team, top to bottom. And I think at this point in time, it's just fun to poke the bear and see what can happen. Everything about the Eagles is so good. Jalen Hurts, he is that same guy that I rooted for coming out of Oklahoma, who I thought was a great quarterback to begin with, who I thought was a great quarterback before he even went to Oklahoma. I thought he was unfairly treated at Alabama, but he wasn't what they wanted, and that's fair. He went and did what's best for him, and he's been making what's best for him for the rest of his career. Saquon is a fantastic runner. He's a fantastic pass catcher. Oh, by the way, you just happen to have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who is the second best 1-2 duo in all of football. And I only say second best because Jamar Chase and T. Higgins does exist. That's a tough 1-2 to beat out. But yeah, so look, the Eagles are a fantastic team, and that defense I haven't even talked about yet, but good luck trying to stop that defense or getting by that defense, really. Outside of a holding call and the referees going against them, as Jared says, it's hard to beat the Eagles. So that's how I have my matchup. Eagles-Bills, Super Bowl in San Francisco, of all places.
It's crazy is we were maybe a couple of reckless tush pushes away from this actually being last year's matchup, and I'm not blaming the Eagles for this. I'm blaming the Bills for this one. Run to the right side just one time instead of going right at Chris Jones every single time, and we'll see what happens. Just one time, or just a regular QB sneak, just anything else.
Just literally just spread them out and run a play and let Josh scramble for it. Do anything else.
Just say Josh Allen freestyle, Josh Allen ISO. That's all you need to call at this point. That is literally what the offense is most of the season, just to continue running. But I do find what is interesting is you mentioned the matchups make it a lot different. I do think with how mine played out, I think it's interesting because I think how the matchups play out. We have the same 4 in the AFC. It all just depends on who they play and where they play. Like, for example, if Cincinnati's going to Buffalo, I like Cincinnati's odds there. However, Cincinnati going to Baltimore, I like Baltimore better because even though they always have head-to-head duels, Lamar is like 6-2 against the Bengals or something like that when he plays. We saw it last year. Even when they both are perfect, Lamar just is perfect at the end of the game. He gets the ball last.
He's got the team to support him, and unfortunately, the offense for the Bengals don't have much more other than Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown. Like they need a defense to support the Bengals.
They need somebody to wrap up. That's all they need. They like Lamar Jackson's breakout at sack, run to the sideline, throw it back across body against Isaiah likely when they're up double digits, kind of spelled the end of there. But and the same with the Bills and the Chiefs. That one's I know the Chiefs have their number in the playoffs 4-0, but outside the first one, they've all been so razor close that it feels like at any point the pendulum is bound to swing back if they keep matching up. Like the first one, obviously they blew them out a little bit, but after that, we all know that overtime spectacle where the 13-second game. We saw last year's with the sneak and the field goal, etc. The year before with the Damar Hamlin fake punt tomfoolery. Like they're always so razor close. It's not like one-sided butt whoopings with Kansas City swinging the hammer. The pendulum is bound to swing back. So I agree there, especially if it's in high mark like this. I think that makes it very, very interesting with so much on the line. And then on the NFC side. Okay.
Well, let's say, let's not forget, you're guaranteed possessions in overtime now. So that changes things when you talk about that matchup as well.
Exactly. Then the NFC side, not too many surprises for me. I mean, like Green Bay getting through, I think they can very easily get by San Fran. Of course, then you have to deal with the Eagles. Like they'll block Micah Parsons. They've done it for his entire career. They've had to deal with it. They're as well equipped to deal with Micah Parsons as anybody. And it's not Toyota-thon at this point, so I'm not sure I trust that offense as much. Seattle's interesting because with all the young defensive players they have, Mike McDonald, I'm looking at like Nick Emmanwari, Byron Murphy from last year. Gray Zabel coming on the offensive line to really help that run game. They're unique in that I think they could either do what you have them doing here, or they're gonna be in that top 5 pick category. They're very interesting. I think if it all clicks, they could be very, very dangerous for sure. Zach Charbonnet, JSN, Cooper Kupp if he's healthy. There's a lot to like there. There's a lot that worries me, but there is a lot to like. And Detroit's Detroit. I think everyone talks so much about the coordinators. I have not seen too many people actually truly pick them to quote unquote stink though. Like there's maybe a sprinkle here or there they say, but they might not win the ultra competitive North. But no one seems to have them falling off a cliff. And I think we're both in the same boat of still very damn good at this is just probably the area where those losses might hurt them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just never know. Honestly, like I said, I've been putting too much work into trying to predict these things. And at this point in time, I'm just like, all right, let's see what happens.
We put all the
threw
work
the
into
dice.
it.
I threw
We
the
put all
dice
the
and
work.
let's see what happens.
We put all the work into here just to go off vibes at the end of it. But
Yeah.
now it's time for our Super Bowl picks. I'll go ahead and lead the way on this one. So we'll revisit the Red Dead Redemption Bowl here. I know what everyone is thinking here. How could you possibly pick the Chiefs? You think you're so damn slick. I have my reasons for this. One, since the day we started doing this, 5 years now, or I think 6 years now, going back the last 5 years though, I've put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl one time in the predictions. That was the year they didn't make the Super Bowl. That was the year they lost to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. Every other year I didn't pick them. They found their way in the Super Bowl. So we're testing this theory at this point. If nothing else, this is a hypothesis. Number two, the Chiefs only play the same damn teams in the Super Bowl over and over again. They got their double dip with the 49ers. They got their double dip with the Eagles. They got to sweep the 49ers. They got to go 1-1 with the Eagles, win the first, lose the second. We're going to go full circle here. They lose to the Bucks the first time. And spoiler, they're going to win the second time. So I think we're going to go full circle. They're going to round out the we're going to get the Travis Kelcey Super Bowl MVP. We're going to get all the Taylor Swift cameos and shots from the crowd. It's going to be agnostic. People are going to cry, but it's going to be quite a game. Bake Show's going to be recklessly awesome in this game, and I think make it weirdly close. He's going to have to like 3 picks and 4 touchdowns or something dramatic. It's going to be just pure cinema. Nothing else is a hypothesis. If nothing else, I want to see if this is actually true. I'm going to see if I am the key to the Chiefs dynasty. Because if they don't go to the Super Bowl, you all are welcome. I did this. And if they do go to the Super Bowl, I was right.
You and every other Swiftie out there who is reading tea leaves at this point in time to put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and have Taylor Swift performing the halftime show.
I didn't go that far. Now hold on. I didn't go that far. I'm saying all the shots every time Travis gets in a 3-point stance.
That's the only thing that you're missing from the entire theories. I'm like Jason Kelcey in this, man. I'm listening to the tea leaves, just laughing at it every time. And I send you all the videos and laugh some more. And yeah, it looks like the tea leaves have finally got to you.
I'm just saying,
Swifties
picking the team that's been in the Super Bowl 6 of the last 7 years is a safe bet at this point. And the 1 year they didn't make it is the one time I counted on them to make it. So we're testing the hypothesis. And then we've already seen it's in the pudding. They don't play different teams. It's the Cavs and the Warriors just with a little tweak of difference in there.
I'm gonna have to start looking in your bookshelf for more Easter eggs after an episode now.
See all of them right there. I mean, there's no Kansas City or Buccaneers up there just because I haven't quite got out that far yet.
I'm just I was gonna say you've gone down the T Swift aluminum foil hat moment now. So now I'm predicting you're gonna have a bookcase full of Easter eggs for the rest of the year.
Not at all. This is the extent of it. This makes me sick, honestly, picking this. This is for science, and I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. But if I'm a betting man, this feels like a good pick at the same time. Like it just feels like it makes sense. And I've been raving Tampa Bay's offense and what they've done in the offseason, our entire offseason talk, predictions, breakdowns, etc. I think they are built to beat all these good teams, but then lose to the Saints twice. Like it makes no damn sense. They are built to. We saw it the last couple of years. They beat the Eagles in a playoff game. They beat the Lions last year, one of 2 teams to beat them. They've beaten so many good teams, and then they barely get by the Saints, and they struggle with Carolina. That they're so unbelievably weird. That's the only way I could describe them. And this would be the ultimate interesting moment of they get to the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. He leaves, then they get back without him because we keep saying Tom Brady won the Bill Belichick race, but it's like they didn't miss a beat after Tom Brady left. So I'm also sparking another argument amongst the people with this one. So I'm throwing a whole lot of kerosene on this.
All right, fair enough. Well, I don't think Bill Belichick has any legs to stand on about he won that race either, though.
Well, that's because his legs are distracted, and it's like a 40-7 age difference. I mean, score difference.
I'll say whatever the score difference was against TCU, it's the same age difference he's dealing with. So
wrong horn frog is what we got in that one.
But no, okay. I think we've hit our quota for T Swift in one episode here, for an episode featuring a Kelcey with T Swift in it. So, all right, that's gonna take me to my picks, and we're gonna talk Haley Steinfeld. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's gonna be Bills. It's gonna be Eagles. I think this is an easy matchup to like root for because look, if you tell me you hate the Eagles outside of diehard NFC East fans, I don't believe you because there's
I
not a
hate
lot
the
of
Eagles.
players on the Eagles to hate.
I hate the
Really,
Eagles, but I blame Jared for that.
I hate Eagles fans.
I
But
hate
the
Jared.
actual players on the Eagles, I have a hard time hating any of them. I root for them. I root for Josh Allen. I root for a lot of the Bills players as well. Deion Dawkins. You know, these guys are guys that are just easy to root for. So in a Super Bowl, it's a tough matchup for me to pick a winner. So I just kind of went with, as I said, I went with the most solid team, and that's the fact that Jalen Hurts can beat you with his legs, beat you with his arm, beat you with his head. Josh Allen is going to be the only guy to beat you, and if you can slow down Josh Allen, you have a chance to win. And I think that's where the Eagles have the best advantage is they have a Saquon, and Saquon is the great equalizer. And if it's not a Saquon, well, then it's an AJ Brown. Well, then it's a Devontae, or it's a 11-man defense that you pick one of them, and you got to go against a potential All-Pro. So good luck anybody who has to match up with the Eagles. But yeah, so unfortunately for us, we all get to see the Eagles fan base celebrate another Super Bowl. So sorry, I couldn't be the good guy here. But yeah, I just have the Eagles winning the Super Bowl.
How does that make you feel, though? Like, how does that make you feel on the inside?
Nah, I don't care. Like honestly, like I've talked about this before, and this offseason's been the greatest thing since renouncing my Cowboys fandom because I don't care when the Cowboys do something stupid. This Micah Parsons thing is just like, oh yeah, I mean, I could have saw that coming. The moment that one of these players was eventually going to fight against Jerry Jones and his theory that I can boss everybody around and get what I want. It's not how you do things. You got to go through agents. You got to make the right calls when you're going to negotiate contracts. There are rules. There are CBAs set in place for a reason. And this is what happens when you decide to screw with somebody's money. Your money's about to get screwed with, Cowboys fans. So, yeah, be picking the Eagles. Maybe it's like a subconscious, hey, Jerry, go whatever. But you know what? He doesn't care about our show. So, and if he does, hey, Jerry, come on and explain your decision about Micah. Maybe I'll listen to you. But yeah, like let's be honest. I don't really mind. I mind more because now I got to hear Jared say like, "Oh man, you picked the Eagles. How great is this going to be?" That's going to suck. Other than that, I mean, honestly, I don't really mind.
I do think if they are well equipped, if everything clicks and there's none of those the things you normally see the teams that try to repeat or follow up the next year, a lot of the losses, the things they have to adjust, that they can meander through that and navigate through that. That helps. It does help that your own division is not really doing much to get better right in front of you. Besides the Giants, who are so far behind, it doesn't matter. Like the Cowboys actively giving away Micah Parsons. We'll see. They have a lot of points they need to score. The Commanders having an AARP account for their defense and their roster outside of their quarterback at this point. And we just mentioned the Giants. So it's a smoother ride there. And looking at the rest of I feel like NFC roster wise, the only team that could compete with them feels like the Lions on paper. Granted, games aren't played on paper. Anything can happen. But I am very curious to see, and I'm really curious to see guys like Adoree Jackson they brought in. Is that like he's gonna be their CB2 on the roster? How does he do they get the most out of him? That's a talented first round pick corner out of USC who's been fine. He hasn't been bad. He just hasn't been quite what they hoped for, but they revitalize him like they've done with players. Great. They're back to not missing a beat in the secondary. Here we go again, along with other players they brought in. John Mechie, who hasn't really got a chance to get going in Houston, does he find his way into taking Jahan Dotson's role? I'm curious how some of these, I'm not gonna call them reclamation projects, but the guys that they bring in, how they bounce out. And most importantly, the thing that we both care most about at this whole thing, they are one of a handful of teams with a fullback on the active roster.
Yes,
That is probably the
celebrate the
exclusive reason for
waistband.
this. Like, this is the
Celebrate the
exclusive reason.
waistband. But no, you know what? Honestly, I think the biggest thing, if I look at the Eagles and like my biggest concern when it comes to them, is Nick Sirianni. Period. Like that is my biggest concern with this team. And on every other team, I have at least a list of 5 concerns. Every other team in the NFL, there's at least 5 concerns for that team. Nick Sirianni is my only real concern, and I don't put health in any of these concerns because I'm just assuming good health through the season. No major injuries. But that's the only thing I look at with the Eagles is like Nick Sirianni is the one thing I think can get the best of the Eagles because his ego has proven to be a downfall for this team before. He has not meshed well with players on his own roster that are still there, that are influential players for the way the game flows. Now, Has that been squashed? Supposedly. Have they won a Super Bowl since that? Supposedly, yes. They actually have won a Super Bowl since that was
A lot.
squashed. But it doesn't change the fact that those things happened. And if they happen again, what does that mean? I don't know for the Eagles. But for me, I'm going to think all things positive here. It just makes sense that the team with the least amount of questions is the team that I'm picking to win the Super Bowl.
I'd say the one question I do have with them is it's also their 4th new offensive coordinator in as many years. That is a lot of I know the offense is really just Jalen Hurts, like, it's built around Jalen Hurts nonetheless, but I'm curious is we talk a lot about changing coaches a lot in the especially coordinators can mess with a younger quarterback's development. I'm curious how it messes with the flow of a well-oiled machine as well. We saw Brian Johnson a few years ago after they switched after Shane Steichen left. It was rough. It was a little bit rough. They got him out of there because it was rough. They brought in Kellen Moore, friend of the show, Kellen Moore. By friend of the show, I mean we want to be friends, him to be friends with the show because we like him. Kellen
Love the
Moore,
lefty.
and he got it clicking. He's like, "Wow, I have this super weapon in the backfield. We're gonna just ride that until someone stops it." And no one really did till the Super Bowl. And then Jalen Hurts, and they won a Super Bowl. So I'm curious how it meshes forward, especially because you can't go too much off your old tendencies. So does it a better thing 'cause you have a new coordinator with different tendencies, or does it throw things off with overcorrection? That's what I'm just curious to see how it meshes together. If it meshes right away, great. Good luck, everybody else. This is what's going to happen. What you see on your board right now. If it's shaky, does it cost them down the line? That's the one thing I am curious about for sure. But defensively, not a whole lot of worries, honestly, when I look at that defense. It's pretty jacked from pillar to post.
Yeah, it's funny with the Eagles though is like while the concerns with the OC does matter. I'm not going to discount that. I do think it does change things when it is the Eagles we're talking about with the new OC, just because it's been a it's been a tradition at this point in time to change an OC there, and no matter what, the one thing they're going to have is they're going to have a tush push. So they know they're going to get the short yardage. They know they're going to get the goal lines. That's going to happen. So that's like one part of an offense I'm not concerned about, and that means guaranteed points, guaranteed first downs, which puts less concern on an OC as well.
The rugby play is already in there. Rugby is already part of the playbook regardless. You already have the horses that doesn't matter who's calling the plays. All you have to do is like do it. And then suddenly everyone knows, all right, make chaos, make a mosh pit and make it happen. So right now we have Kelcey with the Bills taking on the Eagles and DJ with the Chiefs taking on the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. Very different matchups. I kind of wish you'd have picked the Lions and held true to it, but it's okay. We will forgive that one. Next up, though, we've talked a lot about this.
Well,
Now it's time to
hold
start.
on. I do have to
Oh,
say,
you got an argument.
I said this last year about the Lions. If you remember, I said every year they're going to get one step closer. Well, this year, technically, they should get to the Super Bowl and lose. But I was like, I needed a negative hero somewhere, so I'm going to give it the Eagles.
All right, we found our anti-hero there, but let us know what your Super Bowl predictions are down below. Next up, though, we've given out the main trophy. By the way, I'm going to presume Jalen Hurts was your Super Bowl MVP too.
Yeah, Jalen.
Yeah, cool. And in case I threw Travis Kelcey in mine just to complete your Easter egg thing, so we're just going to throw that in there as well. I'm just going to roll with it at this point because you're going to yell over the top and say Easter eggs regardless. So
I mean,
we're going to roll.
Leave blank spaces on all these trophies for Travis Kelcey.
I was going to put Rashee Rice, but that feels almost a little bit way too much like a middle finger, honestly, at this point. Because I feel like this is the Deion Branch Super Bowl, like the Patriots dynasty had, where the playmaker gets one or the Julian Edelman one, if that makes sense, because they can't all be the quarterback getting the award. And who else is going to be at this point if you're on the Chiefs outside of Patrick Mahomes? Who else is going to be?
Xavier Worthy.
I thought about that, but the way I have the matchup with Tampa in the Super Bowl, they're going to be like, nope, everyone get behind him.
George Karlaftis.
Well, that's not a pass catcher though. If
he catches a pass, he's Andy Reid offense we're talking about here. He could throw George Karlaftis as a tight end.
If George Karlaftis catches a pass and wins a Super Bowl MVP, then we'll talk. Then that's a different.
He could catch a pass from the other team too.
Look, if he's on the list, if this Super Bowl comes to fruition, he's on the list. I will put money on George Karlaftis as that guy. Like just from that alone, I will put it on there. But we now have our Super Bowl picks. Now it's time to start handing out some hardware. We're going to run through our list. We got MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookies, and Coach of the Year. So I'll rip through mine relatively quickly. We'll rip the Band-Aid off. Coach of the Year, I got Brian Callahan because I have Tennessee winning the division. It only makes a whole lot of sense. Not a whole lot of sugar and spice and everything nice there. I do think Pete Carroll will be in the running along with many others. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I decided to have fun and go with Will Johnson for the Cardinals. I think him and Walter Nolan are going to add a whole lot to that defense. I think there were so many defensive tackles and rushers that are all going to be relatively similar. And I think Will Johnson's going to find himself in quite a few positions to get some very nice timed interceptions, just his ability to break on the ball while playing zone. We know Jonathan Gannon loves himself some DBs. I think he's going to find a lot of opportunities, especially in that division, how they'll be slinging the ball. So I like Will Johnson to be a surprise defensive rookie of the year and show everybody y'all must have forgot. I should have been taking probably 30 picks earlier than I was, if not 40. Offensive rookie of the year, Cam Ward, because I have the Titans getting into the playoffs. Like, it's pretty straightforward there. I do think, since I do have the Raiders in there, this is going to be which is crazy. I think this is 5 years ago now. Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson, their rookie year, where they were kind of neck and neck the whole way. I think this is going to be the same way with Cam Ward and Ashton Genty. I just gave the edge to the quarterback like they did with Herbert as well, despite Jefferson's amazing season. That being said, the Raiders will be represented for Defensive Player of the Year. We're going to take Max Crosby. I think he is an absolute unit of a machine who gets a ton of sacks on a terrible team that never scores points. Now I think their offense with Geno Smith, Pete Carroll, Brock Bowers, Ashton Jenkins squad is going to be potent, at least at the worst case scenario, competent, which means he will have more opportunities to just tee off and go chase quarterbacks, as opposed to, well, we're losing. Maybe they'll pass it one time every 4 plays. He's going to have so many more opportunities. And I think Pete Carroll's going to put their defense in a lot of positions for him to tee off and get opportunities in. He's Mad Max for a reason, so he's going to get his opportunity. He's going to get chances this year, and I think he's going to make the most of them. Offensive player of the year, this was tough because every year it always feels like you have the right answer, and then something silly happens. So I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. So I think 2 years ago he had such a good case for it, but the MVP award not being allowed to go to non-quarterbacks meant Christian McCaffrey had to get Offensive Player of the Year. He wasn't allowed to get MVP because that's the new rule they've established it without actually saying it out loud. So I'm gonna say CeeDee Lamb's gonna be a leading receiver this year. Dallas is gonna have to put up points. They're gonna have to sling that thing in bunches, and you can't run the ball quite as effectively unless the wall of Tyler's is better than advertised, and they're moving people 6 yards off the line so that I can get 5 yards back there. I think it's a good line, but there's no Ezekiel Elliott or DeMarco Murray back there. Is my point. There's no Tony Pollard even back there. It's gonna be the return of the Dak air raid show, which I think will be effective. And it's gonna be led through CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be moved all over the field. And I think that's when he's at his best, when he's slot, Z, X all over the place. And then George Pickens, go fight somebody on the outside for better or for worse. I think that's going to open up CD a lot, hopefully more for better than for worse. And I think Schottenheimer is a good offensive-minded coach. Should he be head coach? Probably not, but I think he's a good offensive mind that can get the most out of CeeDee Lamb and that offense. He's going to have a ton of targets and opportunities. He was good last year in 15 games with no Dak, too. People forget when you look at the numbers, he was actually good last year. He was second team All-Pro with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Like, he still gets it done regardless. And he did that in 15 games, not even a full 17. So I think CD is going to come back with a vengeance. MVP, I'm stealing some thunder from past years. Jared Goff. We already know it's a quarterback award. Jared Goff, since he's been in Detroit, has led the NFL in passing, just statistically passing, basically. And MVP is a narrative award. It's a quarterback narrative award. And we've seen it like last year. Josh Allen, one-man wrecking crew, hasn't had his MVP yet, gets it. Year before, they have to give it to a quarterback, and Lamar has his 2 best games of the season at the end of the year against contenders in the Dolphins and the Niners. This year, with the change of coordinators, the questions around the Lions, blah, 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 blah. Jared Goff still throws for 4,700 yards, 33 touchdowns. The Lions, the train continues moving. I think he's going to go to Jared Goff this year. And I think the loss of Ben Johnson is going to mean they run the ball a little less effectively, but I think it's going to equate to Jared Goff putting up bigger numbers and more Jahmyr Gibbs now that he's listed as the starter. He's not just the annoying fantasy owners guy, the guys that have him in fantasy by not starting him. I think now he's going to be the starter, which is going to involve a lot more opening explosive plays, a lot more Jameson Williams, too, actually playing a full season without getting injured or suspended. I think that's going to open things up a ton, too. ARSB is still ARSB. They traded your boy Tim Patrick. Don't love that. But the offensive line's still strong. I think there's actually narratives around it that support Goff besides just Goff being a system quarterback. Now, if the system is gone and he's still going to cook like I think he's going to, we're going to say Jared Goff finds his way to an MVP form this year.
I like it. By the way, my Tim Patrick curse continues. This time it wasn't with getting hurt. It was getting traded.
So he does play. If I'm not mistaken, he went to the Dolphins, which means week 1 he has a grand opportunity to score like 4 touchdowns because that's a bad team.
Yeah, but when the quarterback inevitably gets hurt, sorry, Tim Patrick.
He could play quarterback, and that week 1 he'll still find a way to get 2 touchdowns.
That's fair. That's possible. No, I don't mind your list at all. I do hate the fact that you had offensive rookie of the year's Cam Ward, but that's okay because I came prepared for that situation. So
It's such low hanging fruit. It's gonna whack you right in the nipple.
it is. But no, I like your list. I think it makes sense, especially for the way you picked your playoffs, for the way you picked your season as well. So yeah, I respect that. So just to rip the Band-Aid off here then. Coach of the year, Mike Vrabel. The Patriots making the playoffs. It
Same
makes
reason.
sense. Mike Vrabel is going to be that guy. I still hate what they did to previous coach, but hey, when you have the opportunity to make your franchise this better, ideally, yeah, okay, fair enough. Defensive rookie of the year, I really went and played around. John A. Barrett
Ooh,
from the
I like it.
Broncos. Plus 2,000 odds, by the way, for him to win the defensive rookie of the year. He's not the worst at all. He's like 14, 12 or something like that on the list. And it's never the top two every year. There's always, especially defensive rookie of the year, there's always seems to be one that's off the board, off the top five that always wins. Offensive rookie of the year, this is the lowest of the low-hanging fruit. Ashton Genty, plus 250 odds. As you said, everything. He's going to be the offense. It's going to come down to him, Cam Ward, who's going to be the one that gets it at the end of the year. We'll see. Defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, because somebody's got to do it in Cleveland, and he stayed. So looks like he's going to be the one doing it. Plus 850 odds for Myles Garrett to win defensive player of the year, by the way. Offensive player of the year, this guy just continues to keep trucking and keep stiff-arming people into oblivion. He's no longer Derrick Henry, the guy who was at Tennessee. He's now Derrick Henry, the bowling ball that is in Baltimore, and he is still going to be my offensive player of the year. Plus 1,400 odds, by the way, on that one. And MVP, I'm staying in the North, in the AFC, going with another playoff team I have in there, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is poised to have a healthy year, poised to have a year that goes into potential record books for statistics with a healthy T. Higgins, with a healthy Jamar Chase, with a run game that looks to be efficient, and a pass-catching running back really for the first time in his time there that's not named Joe Mixon. And, yeah, I think this is an opportunity for Joe Burrow. And, honestly, like you guys saw me put him in the playoffs. I wouldn't even be surprised to see the Bengals, if they don't match up the way I have them matching up with the Bills, going even further. This Bengals team is always a surprise because their defense is such a wild card. You just don't know at the end of the day. It could be one of the worst defenses you see one week, and then the next defense is like, oh, wow, they're playing like a top 5 defense. But their offense is always going to be a top 5 offense. And it is just that good. And with Jamar Chase coming off what he did last year, I wouldn't be surprised to see more yards, maybe some of the other less stats. If you heard my prediction for the year, he's going to get over 10.5 touchdowns. So maybe he doesn't win the Triple Crown this year because he maybe loses out on receptions, but he's still going to get 2 legs of the Triple Crown. T. Higgins, I'd still say chalk him up for 7 touchdowns this year. Easy. And I think when you look at the rest of this team, Yoshavas is an outstanding piece that they have as a third receiver, very Taj Boyd-esque as far as his ability to get open and be that third receiver for this team. But there's more weapons here, and they just continue to pop up. If Burton can keep himself out of trouble, keep himself on the field, that's a very interesting one. And then they have a tight end again. So we'll see what Joe Burrow can do with that. But I do think this is the one for Joe Burrow where it's like, all right, if he can stay healthy, this makes sense that he has a great opportunity to be the guy that can hoist the MVP trophy. And that way we're not just seeing Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson traded back and forth because, eventually voters are going to get tired of that. I think they're already getting tired of those two guys being in the race. I think Joe Burrow even gets a shot at it. He's going to be the guy. Even if, as we've seen the last 2 years, there's a more deserving player somewhere in there. They're not going to give it to him just because they're tired of the same 2 people. And they will not give it to a quarterback at this point in time. Anything but a quarterback will not get the MVP trophy. So it's a shame, but it is what it is. So
Honestly,
give me Joe Burrow.
If the Bengals would have made the playoffs last year, I could see a case where they consider giving it to him last year with the numbers he put up, and they'd have been like, wow, he carried them. So if he does the exact same thing last year, but this year they win 10 games instead of 9, everything he said could come true, like 45 touchdowns. Okay.
That's how it's been for the last 3 MVP trophy winners. Lamar was gifted it the year he probably didn't deserve it. That was probably Josh Allen's year.
Or Dak.
But then last year when Josh wins it, it was probably Lamar Jackson's. And then, or as you mentioned, Joe Burrow. Well, all right, here we go. Year 3. Even if Joe Burrow is not the number one guy, if he's in the top 3, it's going to be Joe Burrow to make up for last year, because that
It's
just seems to be what voters do.
it's kind of turned into a mess because it has to be a quarterback. It feels like you could have made it probably should have been CMC that year, even a few years ago. Even though he was like third or fourth or
Could have been
whatever it was,
Jamar
like
last year. Could have been Cooper Cup 4 years ago.
it's exactly could have been Saquon last year as well. Like there's 1,000 different ways to. I'm not gonna say skin a cat 'cause that's a terrible saying, but there's a lot of different ways to cook an M&M, I guess. But I also want to point out what I thought was interesting with yours with the Bengals is all the weapons. Chase Brown is so interesting to me because if he can be Austin Eckler-esque for him, just you don't have to run it a lot, just be somewhat effective. Just so we run halfback dive against a 6-man box, get 6 yards. You don't have to be Saquon Barkley. Just you could be a better receiver than runner. We just need you to occasionally when we hand the ball to you fall forward. I think that's gonna be very interesting. And that's gonna really open things up because once he really asserted into that lineup is partially around the time they took off. And we love ourselves some Zach Moss. He's just a different type of fit. So I think Chase Brown just fits what they need a little bit more, and that's what's gonna be. I'm very curious. See, I know everyone talks about him fantasy wise. I'm not talking fantasy. Everyone else could you. I'm just. I think he's gonna be good in fantasy. I'm talking about just football wise, his presence and his ability to go from 0 to 60 yards in a cloud of dust. It's going to be very, very interesting out of the backfield. But I'm excited for this year. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. If you haven't, be sure to check out the rest of our August preview series. See some of the bets we have, some of the wild predictions, the way we got to some of those tomfooleries, and everything that led into it one more time on our way out to Kelcey's playoff bracket, right down to the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl winner. He does have a back to back for the set. We went 20 years between back to back, and you got 2 different back to backs, basically back to back. That's an exhausting amount of backs.
Back. Well, hey, and back to back NFC East champions. So a lot of back to back here.
A lot for the first time in 20 years. Like we're going back to 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 back, and not in the, and it's going to be in the future. And then mine, where history repeats itself, is we will the playoff bracket I have will result in kind of a back to back. We're going back to the future, back to the present, however you want to describe it. But Kansas City taking on the Buccaneers once again, but this time Kansas City getting over the top, and hopefully this is the end of their dynasty, and then they will leave us alone for a while. We throw them this bone, and then they disappear for like 15 years, like the Patriots did, or whatever it takes. We're if nothing else, this is a hypothesis, but we appreciate y'all so much for joining us for this August series. It's been a wonderful job leading up to the season. In 24 hours, we will have live regular season NFL football going. Hopefully, it's not already 7-0 at this point. At that point, because that would meant someone scored really, really quickly and abruptly. But let us know down below who you have getting to the playoffs and some of your award winners as well. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us, and we will see you all again next week.